I love having these conversations on the Diary of a CEO because I have a huge amount of sympathy and concern for people that don't get sufficient sleep. And I know there's a lot of people that don't. And I actually think to some degree, it's somewhat increasing because of the way we live our lives. I was looking at some of the stats around the increase. And there's a study done in 2025 and early 2026 that revealed we're in a global sleep crisis.
Oh, yes, we are.
Both the CDC and Stanford Medicine report said that 1 in 3 adults and nearly 80% of teenagers are now chronically sleep deprived.
Correct.
A 2026 survey by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine found that 93% of Gen Z admit to regularly losing sleep due to social media usage, and 71% of employed respondents globally have said that they sometimes call in sick at least once or twice due to poor sleep.
Just to sleep, yeah. When I was down in Australia doing some work down there, a lot of Australians, they take holiday and they just sleep.
Yeah.
Just to catch up. Like it's pretty remarkable. We're in a very sleep-deprived society. And I think there's a couple of different reasons why that is. Number one, have you seen what's going on outside in the world today? It's pretty crazy out there.
Well,
I can understand why people are getting a little anxious.
I think one could argue it's been crazier through history, but we never knew about it.
Right. Well, I mean, the media getting us this information so quickly, I think is definitely I would agree with you. It was much crazier during like World War II, and stuff like that. But now we're getting information so quickly and people are getting so ratcheted up about it. I think that has something to do with it. But I think the bigger culprit is people being overweight. When you look here in the United States and you look at the obesity epidemic and you look at people being overweight, it's something close to like 70-something% of people in America are overweight. When you're overweight, that puts you in line for potentially having something called sleep apnea. Now, I want to be clear, not everybody with sleep apnea is overweight, but a large percentage of the people with sleep apnea are bigger people. And so when you look at a society that's getting bigger and all of the unhealthy food that we've got going on, all this highly processed food, things of that nature, that isn't helping anybody. It's adding the pounds. And specifically, like for men, we gain weight through our necks. Like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but like if you ever were heavy and you lose weight, the first thing somebody says is, oh, it looks like you lost weight because I can tell from your face, right? And they're like, oh, your neck looks, different now. And so we see a lot of what's going on in the world from a weight perspective and a food perspective could be driving some of the sleep problems. Then there's the anxiety perspective that I spoke of earlier that I think comes in. And again, I agree with you. I don't think we have more crazy stuff going on. I think we know about more crazy stuff that's going on.
But also work is now largely digital. And I imagine for my great-grandfather, he would go to, the factory or wherever he worked.
Yeah.
His work would finish at 6.
Yes.
Your work doesn't finish at 6 now. It finishes when you're awake.
Yeah. Absolutely. It finishes when you go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that becomes problematic, right? Because a lot of times, also, by the way, you need to have dividers in your home. Like, let's say you live in a studio apartment and your bed is your couch, is your kitchen, right? You have no designated spot for sleep. Your body needs to know, hey, this is the spot where I can chill out and finally get some rest. And I think a lot of times our environments just aren't that way.
So many of us are pursuing passive forms of income and to build side businesses in order to help us cover our bills. And that opportunity is here with our sponsor, Stan, a business that I co-own. It is the platform that can help you take full advantage of your own financial situation. Stan enables you to work for yourself. It makes selling digital products, courses, memberships, and more simple products more scalable and easier to do. You can turn your ideas into income and get the support to grow whatever you're building. And we've just launched Dare to Dream. It's for those who are ready to make the shift from thinking to building, from planning to actually doing the thing. It's about seeing that dream in your head and knowing exactly what it takes to bring it to life. It's not too late to join the challenge. Enter to win $100,000. Visit daretodream.stan.store. I've had so many founders speak to me and say, why didn't this particular ad that I ran on this platform work for me? Maybe the copy wasn't good, the creative wasn't strong, but usually the problem is they're not having the right conversation because that ad never reached the right person. And if you're in B2B marketing, that is much of the game. And this is where LinkedIn ads solves that problem for you. Their targeting is ridiculously specific. You can target by job title, seniority, company size, industry, and even someone's skill set. And their network includes over 1 billion professionals. About 130 million of them are decision makers. So when you use LinkedIn ads, you're putting your your brand in front of the right people. And LinkedIn ads also drive the highest B2B return on ad spend across all ad networks in my experience. If you want to give them a try, head over to linkedin.com/diary. And when you spend $250 on your first LinkedIn ads campaign, you'll get an extra $250 credit from me for the next one. That's linkedin.com/diary. Terms and conditions apply. Which sleep disorder should we start with?
Sleep apnea and insomnia. Sleep apnea, for folks out there who may not know what it is when you are snoring at night. Almost everybody who has sleep apnea snores. Not everybody, but almost everybody. And when you're sucking air in, you pull your tongue to the back of your throat and you cut off your air. And you literally stop breathing, right, for a few seconds. And then all of a sudden you make all this kind of grunt and groaning noises, and then you wake up. This can happen hundreds of times a night. And it can be very problematic because, of course, it wakes you up every single time that you have one of these events, right? And so as an example, we measure the events per hour. So as an example, somebody with sleep apnea could have between 5 and 15 times per hour that they stop breathing, and that's mild.
So how are they going to get into the deep sleep that clears out the brain?
That's the problem,
okay.
Right? And so apnea prevents them from getting into a lot of that deep sleep. And so their brain doesn't clear out, and then they're kind of screwed. So at the end of the day, the goal here is to get as many people to, number one, identify if they have a sleep disorder, and then be able to try to figure out what to do about it. And the percentage of people in the US that have undiagnosed sleep apnea is pretty big. It's like somewhere between, I think, like 18 to 20%.
This is crazy. I was just looking at the stats. It says, according to 2026 data, approximately 936 million people to 1 billion adults worldwide have obstructive sleep apnea, which is what, 1 in 7?
Yeah, that's about right.
Making it as common as diabetes. 1 in 7
Correct.
people listening have sleep apnea.
Yes.
Wow.
As popular as diabetes. Let that sink in for like half a second. Everybody knows what diabetes is. Almost nobody knows what sleep disorders are, specifically sleep apnea.
And it says 80 to 90% of those people remain undiagnosed.
That is correct.
Wow. So there's people listening there's actually a huge percentage of people listening right now that have sleep apnea and have no idea that they have it.
Exactly right.
How would they know?
Do the sleep test.
This thing here?
Yeah.
And what would this show?
So this actually collects what is your oxygen levels throughout the night, what is your heart rate throughout the night, how many times do you actually stop breathing, and also the depth of your sleep, which stages of sleep you get when you fall asleep, things like that.
And what would this, so because people are going to be sat there, well, like, how do I know if I need to do the test?
So great question. So you want to think about the symptoms that you might have. So do you snore? Do you wake up gasping for air? Has anybody told you that your snoring stops for brief periods of time, or that they've heard you gasping for air? Do you wake up with a headache in the morning? Do you find your moods are up and down? All of those are signs and symptoms of sleep apnea.
And this test, are you affiliated with this company at all?
I am not, but we do have that test on my website. We sell it to people so that way we can test them.
And how much does it cost?
$189.
Okay, so it's not.
It's not exorbitantly expensive, and it also is covered by insurance.
And it connects to an app?
Absolutely. So you'd put it through your sleeve?
So I'd put that there and then like this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. You go to bed. Wake up, then the information ports over to your phone, and then tells us exactly what's going on. Now, here's where it gets even better. I know, right?
Can you imagine me getting in bed with my fiance and being like, come on, babe,
We're recording all kinds of good stuff. Who knows what she might like?
Is this going to help my sex life?
It's absolutely it will, because getting into bed and knowing how well you sleep and knowing if you have sleep apnea or not will definitely affect your sex life. Also, by the way, I've saved more marriages as a sleep doctor than I ever would have as a marital therapist, dealing with snoring in the middle of the night and things like that. So you'd be surprised. But what's nice about this is it's one night. You don't have to do it multiple nights. It's super easy. And again, believe it or not, that's disposable. You can actually throw that whole thing away after it's all said and done.
And on that point, before we just go a little bit further into sleep apnea, should we be sleeping in bed with our partners? And I know that's an interesting thing to say.
Great question. The strength of your relationship has nothing to do with where you sleep, okay? So lots of people are like, I gotta sleep with my partner, otherwise my relationship's gonna go to shit and everything's gonna go terrible and we're never gonna have sex and we're blah. Not true, okay? So a lot of times for people that I have, so for example, I've got people who have sleep apnea and they use a machine to help them sleep called a CPAP machine, right? And that noise for some people can be disruptive. And so they sleep, let's say, in a different room, right? So is that detrimental to your marriage? No, it's not. Because here's what you do is you vacation on the weekends in your bedroom, right? I can't count the number of people who sleep separately during the week and then together on the weekends. And it turns out that they get much better sleep during the week. And then guess what? Intimacy shows up much faster on the weekends because they're not so tired. Used to be, not tonight I have a headache. It was really not tonight I'm exhausted. When you allow your partner to get good sleep during the week, there's a reasonably good shot that you're going to be able to be intimate over the weekend if they got good sleep. So wearing that to bed might not be the sexiest thing in the universe, but it's better than having sleep apnea and eventually ending up dead.
Are the symptoms of sleep apnea different for men and women?
They are. Great question. So it turns out that men and women are quite different, but we've historically been scoring them the same. So women don't have a tendency to have as much snoring as men do. Women have a tendency to have more arousals where they wake up constantly. Women have a tendency to report headaches in the morning more so than men do. So it's actually different types of symptoms for women versus men when it comes to sleep apnea, to the point where we're now considering using different testing devices. So this testing device would not necessarily measure EEG, and in women, EEG might be important. That's what we're learning. So as an example, our company is finding a device specifically to send to women so that way we can more accurately measure sleep apnea in women. Now, there's a lot of questions about treatment for sleep apnea, and the biggest reason why nobody gets sleep tested is because they're afraid that they're going to end up sleeping with a CPAP machine on their face at night. And so let me describe to your audience what that is. Also, full disclosure, I have sleep apnea. I don't look like somebody who has sleep apnea. I stop breathing in my sleep. I think it's 26 times an hour. I know, right? Kind of crazy. And I wear a CPAP machine and it helps me sleep every single night. Let me explain what it is. So when your throat closes here, CPAP machine is a little air compressor with a tube and a mask that sits on your nose, pushes a just thin stream of just air. And when it hits that blockage, it ever so slightly opens it up, shoots air straight down to your lungs. Now you might be saying to yourself, that sounds barbaric. That is insane. It's a hairdryer blowing up my nose all night long. Here's what I can tell you is when you have a severe case of sleep apnea, this can be a lifesaver. This can be one of the biggest, most important things that you possibly do. Now, a lot of people say, oh, I don't think I could sleep with a mask on my face. Well, that's not the only treatment. There are other treatments called oral appliances. This is like a mouth guard, like you see the footballers wear, but it's an upper and a lower, and the lower slowly brings your jaw forward, which opens up your posterior airway space. The same way that air pushes things aside, the oral appliance structurally moves your jaw slightly forward, thereby opening up your airway. So that works well, and then there's no mask on your face. There's a third device that you can wear on your tongue that vibrates, that shrinks your tongue by a couple of millimeters, which opens up this posterior airway space and allows you to breathe better.
Have you tried all of them?
I have, as a matter of fact.
And why did you choose the apnea machine?
So for me, the apnea machine worked the best and made the most sense for me right now. But I'll be honest with you, I will probably get the mouth guard for when I travel. There's a lot that can be done out there. And by the way, there's also surgeries. And surgeries are a little bit more permanent fix, but in many cases, those surgeries can be quite effective. Also, by the way, they're working on a pill for sleep apnea now. And that's just apnea. We haven't even talked about insomnia yet.
I was just reading about the FDA approving a drug.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. And there's actually three different companies that are working on different drugs right now for sleep apnea. And I mean, to be clear, when that happens, I think it's pretty much game over for sleep apnea, right? I mean, once we can get it in a pill form, which means compliance increases dramatically, we can help a lot of people with sleep apnea, which I think would be pretty amazing.
And women are heavily undiagnosed, right? Because we think of it as, I mean, I've heard it being referred to as a sort of an old man's disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. Many women have a tendency to report insomnia types of symptoms over sleep apnea types of symptoms, when in fact, they actually have undiagnosed sleep apnea, which we can catch.
We talked a little bit earlier, but from many of the conversations I've had on the show about Alzheimer's,
yes,
your chance of getting Alzheimer's, I imagine, is going to increase, right? Because
absolutely,
you have sleep apnea.
Yeah, well, because when you have sleep apnea, it keeps you out of the deeper stages of sleep. The deeper stages of sleep is where that